Hi, I'm Chris. Welcome to my greenhouse. It's just about the end of the first week of June. I'm going to have a look at the tomato plants and have a quick walk around the greenhouse and show you what I've been doing. This year we've got a total of 52 tomato plants. There's 13 different varieties, from standard tomatoes through to cherries. The way I grow them is in ring culture. Ring culture is basically growing the plant in a bottomless pot onto a gravel bed. So the theory is that the plants root out into the gravel, you water the gravel and it takes up all the water, and it's a really good way, an efficient way of growing them. So the pots that I use are actually 7.5 litre plant pots, which has had the bottom cut out. It's quite a laborious job doing that, so somebody now has come up with a proper plastic ring, which makes the job a whole lot easier. And this is one of them. You can see it's absolutely really solid plastic, available from Elixir. The thing I like about this over the pots that I've got is that it's got a slight little rim in the bottom of the pot, and that helps really when you come to take the thing away, because it will actually grip the compost. Important when you've got things like cucumbers, that the root ball collapses on those, or tends to collapse, so it leaves compost on the gravel, which is a bit of a pain and a nuisance. So this, I'm hoping, will take the compost away with it. So as you can see, all the tomatoes are in all sorts of shapes and sizes, and that's really the variety characteristics. The typical tomato plants, the Shirley tomato plants, which makes a large tomato, quite neat in comparison to some of the cherry tomatoes, which tend to grow a little bit more lanky. They've been in now, at time of filming, they've been in for 2 weeks. They're getting their roots into the compost and they're starting to motor. It's a little bit of a problem trying to keep them from not elongating too much. But, you know, hopefully with the weather cooling down slightly, that could help. For the eagle-eyed viewers, you'll see a number of coloured labels on some of the tomatoes. And what these are is that a compost trial is taking place. There's actually 8 different types of compost being trialled here. Some are in pure peat, some are in a peat-based compost, some are in a pure coir-based compost, but most of them are in blends with different fertilisers used. And what I'm doing is I'm trialling an alternative. Well, I'm trialling alternatives to peat-based compost. Peat is going to become scarce and eventually banned, so I'm looking at ways that we can first ameliorate different products with peat, but then replace it altogether. And I shall be monitoring how the different composts perform throughout the season, and I'm looking really for the ability of the plant to actually be sustained in the different mixes, water holding capacity, nutrient retention. I'm going to take all of these into consideration and see what functions the best. I shall be writing all of this up in due course as well. And you can really start to see some of the differences in the compost. As I say, these plants have been planted for 2 weeks. The plant on the left is growing in a different media to the one on the right, and you know, the one on the right is much greener, much more healthy. This is a tomato called Flamingo, which is a large cherry tomato. Really recommend this when it crops for a long period of time with lovely rose coloured fruits. And I've got 6 cucumber plants as well. Varieties here are Carmen, which is nearest to the camera, Fem Spot and Louisa. One of the plants is all of the plants are grown in 100% peat-based compost, but the plant that I'm looking at now is grown in a mix of 50% peat and 50% garden compost, and I can't tell the difference between the growth of that to others. So mixing the compost that I'm using, the peat-based compost that I'm using with garden compost, as having no detrimental effects whatsoever. And a little look at what I'm growing on. Got some French beans in root trainers, again available from Elixir. First time I've ever used these. I've always used the spent toilet rolls and put the compost in those. Always had a problem with the roots circling in the bottom, but these are really quite impressive. I've grown some runner beans in them, and those have gone in the garden. Roots went straight down, and I've noticed that the actual plants get away much quicker. I've got some zinnia grown in 60 cells, and then I've got all my brassicas. These were sown on the 17th of May. I'll say it's first week of June now, so they've really motored on. I shall be giving these a quick feed of a high nitrogen fertiliser, a bumper crop high nitrogen, in the next week or so, and that will then give them a boost just before they're planted out round about the middle to end of June. Got sweet corn, lark, swift and wagtail waiting to go out. Those will be going out this weekend, and some courgettes and marrows. These are all sown in a 20 cell tray, and again there's really no need to be planting these straight out into pots. They're perfectly happy in a module tray and planted out. And we've got some module grown beetroot, lettuce and spring onions, and these are going into a little project in the next few weeks, which I shall also be telling you about. And here we got some echeveria. Black Prince on the left, Duchess of Nuremberg on the right. And this is how I start them off. They're all done by leaf cuttings. These were taken around about November, December last year and kept in a frame over the winter. And similarly, carnations. These again were taken as cuttings into pots last autumn and potted very early in the spring. And a quick peek into the frame. At the moment it's got sweet peppers growing in there. I've used the same mixes of compost for this trial as well, and again you can see some marked differences in the quality of the plants. Some are looking quite chlorotic, but these will be spaced back out again in the next week or so. Some will go back into the greenhouse, some will stay in here for the summer and fruit in here, but ideally we want about 50% of the plants left in here. And finally, the area that is really popular with the blackbirds at the moment, the other frame, which is fruiting strawberries. We've had a number of these already, and as you can see there's a really good heavy crop. So I hope you've enjoyed having a quick look around the greenhouse in early June. We'll be back on a couple of more occasions throughout the summer, but for now, so long.